Let me show you how we can do the initial configuration on OPPO Find X9. So once you turn on your device and insert your SIM card, for example, into the phone, what you can do is we're gonna tap on this arrow. Now over here we need to choose the language that we want to use for the setup and the phone in general. So I'm gonna choose English, of course, and then we can go ahead and choose next. Then we have the region. We can choose our region. So let's say we're gonna choose United States. Of course, later on we should be able to change that in settings. Let's go next over here. And if you inserted 2 physical SIM cards into your OPPO Find X9, then over here you can choose which SIM should be used by default for, I assume, for mobile data. So I'm gonna choose my first one. Now, if you have another device, you can quickly transfer some data and move settings, accounts, and so on and so forth. And over here you can choose Android device or iPhone, depending whichever device you had. But if you want to perform a clean setup, then you can do that by choosing skip, and this is what we're gonna do. Now, in this case, we can choose Wi-Fi that we want to connect to. And if you want to, you can also use the QR code scanner that is over here in the upper right corner. We can also refresh the list if you want to, or we can skip connecting to Wi-Fi. In my case, I'm gonna choose this connection over here, this Wi-Fi over here. I'm gonna connect to my Wi-Fi. There we go. Now, if needed, you might need to tap on save in the upper right corner. And once you connect to Wi-Fi, and if you didn't automatically go to the next page, we're gonna tap on next. And now we need to wait for the next screen to be set up by the phone. Now, once again, we can copy apps and data from our previous device. We can also use the Google backup. If you use that over here, if you go next, then probably you will have to sign into a Google account, and then you will find the list of backups on your Google Drive. In my case, I once again want to perform a clean setup, so I'm gonna choose don't copy, and most likely we'll still have the option to sign into a Google account. Yeah, there we go. So we can use our credentials if you want to sign in. If you want to create a new account, then of course we can do that quite easily. And you can also skip this sign-in page by choosing the skip button. Of course, we need to agree to Google Terms of Service. And after that, you can also set up the screen lock password and also biometrics once you set up the password. So if you want to do that, you can of course do that immediately over here. But in some other cases, if you want to skip that for now, you also have this option, and later on by going to settings, you can of course set up the password or set up biometrics as well. So in my case, I'm just gonna skip that. I'm not gonna waste my time right now for the password. I don't need this right now. Then we have Google services such as location, which we can enable or disable over here by tapping on the switcher. If you decide to use location, I can recommend you disabling scanning over here. This one is used for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and it doesn't have to be enabled all the time. And this option will definitely help you save some battery actually. So yeah, also we can allow phone number verification. I'm gonna turn it off. I don't need this, but in your case, you might want to actually agree to that, only if you want to, of course. Everything is pretty much optional over here, so I'm gonna also disable usage and diagnostic data, and we can choose accept. Now we can choose to back up our photos and videos as well as the other device data that is listed over here by using Google services, so we can use our Google account to create backups of these data. You can also uncheck boxes for the data that should not be included in the backup, and then you can just turn on backup once you decide. But at the same time, once again, if you want to, you don't have to agree. We can choose don't back up. Then we need to choose our default browser and search engine. Now over here, first we have the list of different browsers. And if you don't know which one to choose, if you are not familiar with them, then most likely you want to choose Google Chrome. This is like the most basic and most popular choice on smartphones. So you can probably choose this one and then set as default. And in the case of search engine, of course, Google is the most popular choice, so we're gonna select it as the default one. Now over here we can continue setting up our phone, or we can leave immediately to the home screen, I assume, and get reminded. Now in this case I'm gonna actually press continue so I can show you what we can find afterwards. So in this case we have the introduction to Gemini. We can see how to activate the Gemini quite easily. We can press continue, and we can also set up the Hey Google voice command. So if you want to be able to activate the Gemini assistant by saying Hey Google out loud, then of course you can set it up over here. You can press turn on, and then you will have the configuration. You will probably have to say a couple of sentences out loud to be able to use it. But in my case, I don't really want to do that, so I can choose no thanks. Over here, you can also set up the Google Pay, the wallet, so you can add your payment card if you want to, in order to be able to make contactless payments with your OPPO Find X9. In my case, I'm gonna skip that. Of course, we can still do that later on by going to the Google Wallet app. And over here we have some additional options that we can do right away, such as we can add another email account, so we can sign into another Google account, we can change the wallpaper, and we can also review additional apps, which I definitely don't want to do. And there we go. Now over here we have the SIM detection, so if you have SIM card inserted, then of course we can enable or disable mobile data. We're gonna keep it on actually. We have some recommended services like automatic update overnight, global search, which can be toggled over here, weather services, and so on and so forth. The app market as well, which we can enable and disable, lock screen magazine, and much more. So if you want to, you can scroll through this list and you can decide whichever options you want or you don't want to use. Over here, I'm gonna actually enable Quick Connect over here. And I believe that should be all that I actually want to use. So let's go ahead and press agree. Then we have the color mode, which we can set to standard or natural. You can choose whichever colors you prefer. I'm gonna actually choose natural. I think they are slightly better in my opinion. But of course, this is a personal choice. Then we have the navigation. You can choose buttons or gestures. And you can also change the layout in case you want to switch the order of buttons over here. And for gestures, you can tap Learn Gestures in order to find out how to use them if you are not familiar with them. And let's press Done. All right. So now let's tap on this arrow. We should be all set. And there we go. We have the access to our home screen. We also have a little animation showing us that we can swipe on the left side to open notifications, of course. And on the right side, we have quick settings. And that's about it. So the first setup is done. Now we can start using your OPPO Find X9. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe.